perform in one way or another, whether it be at work with meetings or big projects that we need to do. If it's at home with your family and your friends, whatever you're doing throughout the day is a performance that you want to be at your best, or at least being 100% of whatever you have that day. So today we're going to be talking about monotasking. And if you haven't heard the term monotasking before, that's okay. We will go through it, but you probably have heard of the term multitasking. So let's talk about multitasking first. What do you think of when you think of multitasking? And you can drop it in the chat. Like Miranda said, if you'd like to talk about it live, please unmute yourself and turn your camera on and explain what comes to mind when you think of multitasking. Okay, doing several things at once, stress. Okay, Ashley said work, pressure, trying to be more productive unsuccessfully, juggling tasks, another vote for stress, needing to be on top of your game, trying to get more things done, but too little time. Yeah, time is a major factor in everything that we do. Stress, busyness, stress. Okay. Are there certain areas of your life that you feel like you have to multitask more in? Let's say, if you feel like you're having to work on multiple things at once at work or at home, does one stick out more to you than the other? Work and caregiving, maybe a little bit of both. Little kids, everything is multitasking. Work, okay, home. Yeah, so even Heather saying juggling, being able to juggle home and work life. Yeah, everything is so connected. It's interesting that there are some people that say that they feel like they have to multitask more at home, depending on, what their home life looks like. If you have little kids, of course, I can absolutely see that multitasking at home is just the norm. And then being at work, there's a lot of work stress or tasks that you have to do throughout the day that kind of demand you to multitask or work on multiple things at once. We had a lot of people say stress, which I hope today when we talk through multitasking and we talk about monotasking and resilience, that you feel as though not that your stress is being pulled away or that you're diminishing your stress, but you have the skills at least to practice dealing with that stress in a more productive way, and you're able to be at your best when it really matters. So as we go through this, if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat anytime, and I will have time for questions at the end. But in general, and we had seen this in the chat, multitasking is performing more than one task at the same time. That's as simple as it can be. It can be performing 2 tasks at once, or 3 tasks, or 4 tasks going. So you could see yourself at work answering emails while also trying to work on a project, or filling out some kind of form while answering the phone. Even listening to music and working is a form of multitasking. And there are different types of multitasking, which we will kind of touch on a little bit later, requiring different kinds of brain power. Checking social media and watching a movie when you're at home is definitely a form of multitasking, asking your brain to focus on more than one thing at once, making dinner and having a conversation. And the more responsibilities we have, the more we tend to multitask, right? So when we saw in the chat, if you have little kids, that's a lot of responsibility, as well as going to work and making sure that everybody is taken care of at home. you're often asked to multitask in that way, and it may feel like you have no other option but to do multiple things at once all the time. So we had a lot of thoughts about multitasking. It seems like everybody does multitask. So now I want you to rate your multitasking skills. So on a scale of 1 to 10, put in the chat, 1 being like the worst, I am terrible at multitasking, I don't even multitask. 10 being you're like a pro multitasker. Think about how productive you are at multitasking, how much you feel like you accomplish. I see a lot of 7s. Carolyn, you're a 4. 5, 6, 8. Great. 9. Wow. Kelly said depending on the day. Yep, that's absolutely true. 7, but it depends on the 2 tasks. Yes, Catherine, that's an excellent point that we will absolutely talk about later. Definitely depends on the tasks. 5 depends on the tasks. Okay, great. Thank you all for rating. Remember what you rated yourself because we will go back to this later. But in general, it seems like most people feel like they're above that middle, like 50% average of their multitasking skills. So now we get to test your multitasking skills and see how good you really are. I'm going to drop a link in the chat. If you could follow that link, don't start anything yet before I give you all the directions, but just follow the link in the chat to this concentration grid. It should come up. Double check that the rows and the columns both equal 8. So you should have 64, a 64 count grid on your screen. And so when I tell you to, you are going to push that concentrate button at the top of your screen and then start with 0, 0 and try to find as many numbers as you can chronologically. So starting with 0, 0, you'll click on that. Then you'll click on 0, 1 when you find it, 0, 2, 0, 3, and so on. So get as many numbers as you can in the time that I give you. At the same time, because again, we're practicing our multitasking skills here, I'm going to be reading a story for you. It's just typical day in the life of an office worker, someone at UA, that then I will be asking you a series of questions on after this activity to see how much you were actually listening. So again, you're going to be doing the concentration grid, finding as many numbers as you can in chronological order when I tell you to, and then also listening to this story at the same time. Feel free to take notes if you'd like, and then I will test how well you were listening. Okay. If there are any questions, please unmute, shout them out. If not, we're going to get started. So get ready to push that concentration button in 3, 2, 1. It's a Monday morning at 10 a.m. and you're working away on getting organized for the week and listening to your favorite Taylor Swift song. You see an email come through from a colleague, Grace, asking about the timeline for a big project you're working on together. You're just about to respond when Jake knocks on your door looking for the number of students projected to attend the Lunch and Learn next Wednesday, the 19th, so he can make sure there are enough sandwiches for everybody. There are already 105 students registered for next week, but you know 50% probably won't attend, so you decide on ordering 80 sandwiches. It's always better to have more than to run out. As you start talking about options, chicken Caesar salad wraps, maybe a BLT, we should probably do a vegetarian option in there somewhere. Your child is texting you about their soccer practice being canceled tonight because of the rain. Now your mind is going to what you should have for dinner. You were planning on Chick-fil-A for something easy and quick, but now that you have more time, maybe you should make something, maybe chicken Caesar wraps. Wait, no. Let's focus back on lunch for the students next week. Oh yeah, and you have to respond to Grace's email. Okay, stop where you are on your concentration grid and write down the number that you ended with. So if you found the last number you found was 25, write that down. And now I'll be asking you the series of questions to see how much you're paying attention to that story. So, what kind of music were you listening to in the morning at your desk? Just write it down somewhere. Okay, next question, and write this down so that you can tally up your own score and instead of putting it in the chat. Next question is, who asked you for projected student attendance? Who's the coworker that came into your office? Next question, when is a student lunch and learn? Next, how many sandwiches did you decide to order? And the last question is, what sport does your child play? Okay, so those are the 5 questions from the story. Now I'm going to check your answers. So you were listening to Taylor Swift. Jake was the person that had asked you for the student attendance. Next Wednesday, the 19th, is the student lunch and learn. You decided to order 80 sandwiches and your child plays soccer. So tally up how many questions you got right, and then add that to the number that you had ended with on the concentration grid. So again, if I got 2 questions right and I finished with 20 on my concentration grid, I'm going to have 22 points. And so I want to see how many people, what points people got. Wow, 42. Amazing. 19, 25, 24. All right, all right around 20, 21, 28. That's great. 29, 14, 10. Heather had some additional things pulling your attention. Kudos to you. Okay, so we were all kind of right around the 2018 to 25 range. We had a couple people a little bit higher, a little bit lower, which I would be interested in hearing your strategy. Maybe you had just focused on the concentration grid and said, you know what, I'm not even going to worry about the story, or vice versa. Just a very interesting way of people, deciding what to do. So to give you some context, first graders were also given this concentration grid, and they typically would find 25 numbers in the same amount of time that you were asked to do this concentration grid. So a couple things here. I don't want to make you feel bad or feel like, you're at that first grade level. First graders are really great at immersing themselves in one task. That ability to be really focused on that one task is supernatural for us. And so if you remember or had noticed, a child playing make-believe or any kind of game, they're super immersed in that one task and probably not listening to what you're saying or anything else that may be going on. Even if it's for like 2 or 3 minutes, they are so solely focused on that one task. And as we grow older, there are a lot of different factors pulling our attention. We have a lot more responsibility. And so our attention is being pulled in so many different directions that it's really difficult for us to be immersed in that one activity. And so again, the intent is to just show you context of, okay, is this number that I got on this concentration grid good or bad? I think we all kind of saw that it was difficult to listen as well as find as many numbers as we can on that concentration grid because our brain is being pulled in multiple different directions at once. So now I want you to think back to what you rated yourself in your multitasking skills right before your test. And I want you to rate yourself again. You can put it in the chat or you can say, yeah, I went higher, it went lower. But how confident or less confident are you now in your multitasking skills? And so, Megan, just to reiterate, the final scoring was the number that you had ended with on the concentration grid with the number of questions that you got right. Heather has gone from a 6 to a 2. Yeah, definitely less confident. Great, more confident. +1. Okay. And so again, we're seeing people, most of us are saying, we're less confident. A couple of people are saying that they're a little bit more confident, which is fantastic. Again, you may already have some practices in place to allow you to have that ability to listen to multiple things at once, which we, again, will go through in just a second. Okay, so just to reiterate, most of you are saying that your skills in multitasking have decreased after you had tested them. The first time you had predicted that you're a pretty good multitasker, at least above 50%. And now we're seeing, 5s, 4s, 3s, or 2s. And so you are not alone. The point of this wasn't to show how bad you are at multitasking or make you feel like a failure, but the point of it is to show that we think we're super efficient at multitasking and we're really good at completing 2 or 3 tasks at once, when in reality, we're probably overestimating our abilities and we'd be more efficient and perform at our best if we were able to focus on one thing at a time. And so you can see here, there was a survey done with a lot of different people just asked to estimate their ability to multitask. And then they were given some kind of task just like we had done. And 93% of those people overestimated their ability. So again, most, if not almost all people are going to be overestimating their ability to multitask in any situation. And so we can also see that we're able to do more than one thing at a time. Our jobs at work and at home, even on the weekends, we often are forced to juggle multiple things at once. And when we're working on doing multiple things, it may not be the same as performing those things. So again, we're capable of doing several things at once, but it doesn't mean that we're doing them well and we're performing our best at it. So for example, talking and driving, just talking on the cell phone and driving, there were some studies done that put people in 2 groups. One group was just asked to drive in a like driving simulator, and then the other group was asked to just talk through Bluetooth on the phone, so not texting but just talking. And they were given a series of traffic signals to respond to, and they found that the group that was talking and driving were twice as likely to miss those traffic signals than the group that was just driving and just focus on that sole task of driving. Moreover, when they did see the correct signals, their reaction time was slower. So if they were talking on the phone and driving at the same time, they were able to see the signals, but their reaction time was a little bit slower than the group that was just driving and only had to respond to the driving and the traffic signals. So again, we can perform more than one task at the same time. We can drive and talk on the phone, but we may not be fully attentive to that one thing that's really important. So, of course, for driving, we want our full attention to be on driving, even if we're able to pay attention for the most part and we need to react quickly. If we're doing something else, our reaction time is going to be slower because it takes longer for our attention to shift from one task to another. So again, for those of you who had done well at the concentration grid, maybe you scored a 26 to 27, 28. I think someone scored a 40. Again, you're most likely able to either solely focus on that concentration grid and not really do that well at the question in the story. And that was your choice. So it's different strategies will show different results. But if you truly were trying to pay attention to both, more often than not, your score was about 25, maybe 20. And so when we think of multitasking, multitasking is actually something that isn't a thing. So it's a myth. We think of multitasking as doing multiple things at one time. So actually splitting our brain into two different tasks. So if I think of myself working on an email and trying to talk on the phone, I'm thinking to myself, I'm multitasking. I have 50% of my attention on my email and 50% of my attention on my phone call. When in reality, that's going to be it's going to be my brain's going to be switching from one task to another, and that can take a serious toll on my performance. It takes more effort for my brain to switch from one task to another, even if it's super quick. It's an unconscious switching. It's still going to require my brain more effort to switch from one task to another. And then at the end of the day, we're going to feel a lot more worn out. Plus, we feel like we don't have time to relax because we feel like we need to be productive all the time. Moreover, it can increase our time that it takes to complete a task and make us really inefficient. So it can take up to 40% more time for us to multitask, do two things at once, whereas it may take less time to do one thing and then move over to the next task and complete that fully. And so to give you some perspective on that aspect, every time you switch a task, you'll lose an average of 23 minutes of concentration because it takes your brain so long to get back into that task that you just switched from. And just a little bit more on that in a moment. But I wanted to go through more mistakes as well. So when we try to multitask or focus on more than one thing at once, we are often going to increase the time, the mistakes that we make or the errors that we're going to see, because again, we're not fully focused 100% on that one activity. It also decreases our creativity and innovation. If we're spending less time fully immersed in a task, we have less time to have those aha moments or those creative work-throughs that we may need to have to be putting out a great product or a great project, or being at our best. So if multitasking isn't a thing, and I alluded to this previously, what is our brain doing? We're actually task switching. So our attention isn't split, it's shifting from one task to another very rapidly. And so being able to shift our attention in a smooth and decisive and effective manner allows our performance to improve. We are not making as many mistakes. We're not, our brain isn't expending as much energy as possible, and we're a little more efficient. And so if we kind of forget the idea of multitasking and really focus on monotasking from one task to another and being fully immersed in that one task for as long as we feel like we need to be or as long as we're able to be, that's going to allow you to be as effective, efficient as possible, getting things done, and at the end of the day, feeling fulfilled, and looking back, reflecting, saying, yes, I did what I needed to do today. I feel like I'm not worn down or exhausted, but I feel good about the things that I was able to check off my list. And so some people are going to be more adept at switching tasks than others, especially in certain situations, but there's always going to be costs associated with those. So a switch cost is the time that it takes our brain to disengage from one task to another. So let's say I'm looking at my email and answering my phone at the same time. If I feel like I'm multitasking, it takes my brain more time to switch from that one task to another because my brain needs to remind myself of the context of that one task that I'm switching to. So if I'm talking the phone to somebody, answering a question, helping them register for a class online through the Wellbama portal, and then I get an email that comes through, it says urgent on it. My brain is switching to that one task, even when that person is still talking on the phone. And then they say something I think I need to respond to or listen to. My brain switching back to that phone call, but I still need to remind myself of what we were talking about and what she is saying in the context of our conversation. And so that time is lost between switching from one task to another. And I probably miss critical information that she's telling me that I need to either ask her to repeat herself or kind of guess and figure out on my own. But that takes more mental energy as well, than if I were just fully immersed in this one task, in that conversation, in that phone call, helping her. That could be a 5-minute phone call. But if I'm missing that critical information, or I'm expending more brain energy, it's not allowing me to be as effective as possible in that conversation and help her out in that 5 minutes. It may take 8 minutes, which is, if it adds up throughout the day, that is very valuable time. So there are techniques that we can do to minimize distractions or help ourselves focus on one task or another through monotasking, using resilience. So resilience, as a reminder, is the ability to bounce back in the face of adversity, challenges, and change. In an environment that is constantly changing and placing demands on us, we must learn to be resilient in any way possible. Resilience isn't about being like no emotion, no struggle, no challenges or being pushed down. It's about that bounce back, and it's about learning from the things that we're going through. And part of being resilient is being mentally agile and allowing the things that are happening, especially if they're out of our control, to be as they may, and then focus on what we're able to focus on and what we can control in the situation. And so when we think of being mentally agile or mental agility, we are allowing ourselves to not just survive the day or say, yeah, I got everything done on my to-do list, but we're telling ourselves that we thrived and allowing ourselves or helping ourselves to get through the day in the best way possible. So resilience is also a skill to be practiced. It's not something that you're born with. It's not something that you either have or you don't. You learn resilience through deliberate practice, just like any other skill, just like building any other muscle. You need to put those reps in and practice these skills, to be strong, resilient people and to have those skills ready in your back pocket when you do need them. And lastly, resilience is a pathway to consistent, excellent performance and that cognitive and emotional well-being. So, as I said in the beginning of this presentation, I believe that everything is a performance that we do throughout the day, and being able to show up at our best as consistently as possible is going to be is the goal. And being consistent is also extremely important because we never want to be surprised by our reaction to something. And we don't want other people to be surprised by how we react. We want them to understand and expect exactly what we're giving them, because that's going to help us be our best selves, and it's going to help us connect in ways that we need to connect to feel fulfilled and have that cognitive and emotional well-being. So given that attention is limited and that we need to deliberately shift our attention from one thing to another, depending on the demands of the environment, those challenges, those changes that are constantly being flown or being thrown at us, there are certain skills that we can practice, that flexibility or mental agility, through resilience. So we're going to talk about that now. And then I'm not sure if Miranda dropped the worksheet in the chat just yet, but she will, I think. There is a worksheet that you can print out. You can also, it's a one sheet, two sides. You can work on it online as well if you'd like. But you can work on it right now as you go through or later on. We're going to start with skill 1. And skill 1 is called WIN. It's an acronym, WIN. You may have seen this, but it stands for what's important now. So as I'm going through my day, I'm preparing for my day, I'm looking at all my priorities, I'm trying to figure out how to manage everything within the time that I have. I'm going to be focused on what's important now in every single situation, every single task that I need to do. I'm focusing on that one sole task rather than trying to do multiple things at once. Our brain loves a target. We love having something to focus in on and say, okay, this is what I need to do. This is what I need to accomplish. And rather than saying, I'm not checking social media, I'm not checking my email. Okay, those are the things you're not doing. Let's focus on the things that you are doing. So that's where WIN comes in, to immerse yourself in that activity fully. Tying this what's important now to your values can also help you really focus in on that task and what you need to do. So especially if it's a task that you don't want to do or it's kind of overwhelming, being able to tie that task or that behavior with your values, the way you live your life, what's important to you, seeing the bigger picture and your why is going to help you get those things done and really focus in on that task at hand in the best way possible. Because then at the end of the day, you're going to feel energized rather than exhausted, or more often than not, you'll feel energized and fulfilled. It's not every single day, it's not 100% of the day, but it will help you feel like you're doing something meaningful and fulfilling to your own values. So to focus specifically on that what's important now and that priority, you can create this diagram or this circle, and you can do it anywhere on a little notepad. You can make a list on your computer if you're a digital note taker like me. But you'll first focus on your external distractions. So really honing in on and building awareness of your external distractions. What are the things that potentially could be pulling me in different directions outside of myself? Once you have those all written down, then you would focus in on the internal distractions. So the things that may be pulling my attention, my thoughts, my emotions, how I'm feeling physically, away from that task at hand. Building awareness of what may come up. And then in the center, you'll have your one thing or your what's important now. And that's the thing that you want to tie to your value, That's the thing that you want to come back to if you feel like your attention is shifting or being pulled in those different directions from those distractions. You want to refocus on that one thing. And it helps to have it just be, one word or two words, as simple as possible, so that you can just tell yourself, this is my one thing. If I'm being distracted over here, I can refocus on the task over here, just by telling myself, let's focus on that win, what's important now. So for example, um, practicing this presentation and giving this presentation is important to me, and doing my best. This is one of my performance aspects for my day today. So I want to be as immersed in this presentation as possible. So really focusing in on that what's important now. I would bring awareness to the external distractions that I may be facing throughout this presentation, like emails coming through, maybe someone's texting me on my phone, or my office phone is ringing. The chat feature is like dinging as people are coming into the meeting or responding to certain things in the chat. All of those are going to be external distractions trying to pull my attention away from this presentation. Internally, it's lunchtime. I haven't had lunch yet, so maybe I'm feeling a little hungry. I'm thinking about the run I had this morning. That was really great. You may hear I'm a little congested, so that could be a little bit of a distraction for me being at my best in my presentation. Wondering if all of this makes sense and if people are finding value in it. That's going to be an internal distraction thought that I may have that pulls me away from the things that I'm trying to say and into more of my head. So again, building awareness of those internal distractions that may or may not come up in my presentation. And then lastly, really focusing in on that one thing of this presentation and connecting it to my value of helping others. So I really value giving others the tools to be at their best at all times. And so that altruism, that value of helping others is going to be my reason for focusing in on this presentation right here and right now, feeling confident and giving back to you all as participants. So being able to build awareness of what may happen, what may pull my distraction or my focus with these distractions, will help me prepare for anything that does happen and then refocus in on that one thing. So as you go through this on your own, or if you're going through it right now, it could help to think of a time that you were really focused on one task. Remembering when you felt like you could not be shaken, your focus was really honed in on one task at hand. Remembering what helped you stay really focused. That can be a really good starting point for building awareness of your one thing, and then your internal and your external distractions. Once you focus on that one thing or identify your one thing, you can move on to skill 2, which is cues. So these cues, there's 2 different kinds, do and be cues. These are going to help you stay in that present moment. So you've already got your one thing, you've already got your what's important now, you already know what distractions may come up. How exactly am I going to keep myself focused on that one thing? I'm going to use cues to tell myself what task or technique I need to do and focus on, and or what mental state and emotional state I want to feel or be in to really focus in on that one thing. So do cues more specifically are going to give you direction on technique, strategy, kinesthetic attributes, if that applies to your performance at the time. It's going to be some kind of task or technique that you want to do that's super simple. BQs are going to be that emotional or physical, emotional or mental state that you want to feel in a performance. So if you want to psych yourself up for a performance, maximize your effort, build your confidence or your positive mood, those B cues are going to be really extremely important for your focus and your performance at hand or the task that you're working on. So for example, same scenario, I'm getting ready to do this presentation, this webinar. I've already got my one thing tied to my value. What am I going to say to myself in the moment to get myself ready and to get myself ultra focused on this task at hand 100%? So I'm going to tell myself personally for me, slow down because I tend to talk a little bit faster when I'm maybe nervous or excited about something. I'm going to tell myself drink water when I need to slow myself down because that can help me cue into that focus and just really even steady state. I'm going to breathe, again, making sure to slow down. And then I'm going to tell myself to start the show, especially right when I start. I'm ready to go. I'm starting the show. That tells my brain to, all right, flip that switch and focus in on this task. For B cues, these are again how I want to feel, the energy that I want to have. So smooth and confident, slow and steady. If I need to psych myself up a little bit, if maybe I'm a little tired, I'll say, let's go. Maybe I'll clap my hands too. And then to take from Bruce Lee, you may have heard this inspirational quote or a video from him talking about being like water. If you pour water into a glass, it becomes a glass. If you pour water into another container, it becomes that container. So that tells me if I'm telling myself I'm like water, no matter what distractions, internal or external, are coming at me, I am going to take them as they come and just let them be. I'm very fluid with what I'm doing. And then once you identify the cues that'll work for you, you'll want to remind yourself of those cues in the moment and have a couple other skills in mind for that real-time refocus. So you're already immersed in that task. These distractions are coming internally and externally from different directions at any given time. And so we want to have skills in our toolbox that allow us to, if we can, stop and then refocus on the task at hand. So the first skill is going to be recognize and replace. So in this moment, if you're fully immersed in this task and someone is or something is pulling your attention away and you recognize that your attention is being drifted away from this task at hand that you really need to get done, you can stop and refocus on that what's important now using something called an if-then statement. So, for example, if I notice my attention is shifting to my email during this presentation, then I will stop and remind myself of that win, what's important now, that presentation, and give myself a cue word like let's go or drink the water, and then refocus and get back to the task at hand. That's going to be really helpful, especially if you have tasks that are a little bit longer, and you do have time to stop and rest or give yourself a short break and then refocus on something else. Those times or those situations, that if-then statement is going to help you refocus. Next is deliberate breathing. I've heard so much about deliberate breathing this week, and I love it. Our breath is so important. We all know how to breathe, but we often don't use our breath as a tool to get the right energy activation or allow ourselves to stop and refocus or figure out what's going on and then get back to the task at hand. And so being able to practice a deliberate breath here and there when you recognize that you're not focused on the task that you need to focus on and you allow yourself to get back to that task, deliberate breathing is going to be a really great tool. So there's two different kind of breaths that you can use. The slow down and refocus is going to be more of what you think of when you think of meditation. And you don't have to do a full meditation. You can do 2 or 3 deliberate breaths that are going to be a 4 count inhale and an 8 count exhale. So making your exhale longer than your inhale. So inhaling for 4, exhaling for 8, or whatever is comfortable for you, as long as your exhale is longer, allows you to slow your mind down, slow your physical state down, and then refocus on what you need to do and what's important. The second type of breath is to increase your energy if you need that. If you need just a quick energy boost, or you need to like boost your creativity or your mental energy, you can do the opposite. So you would have an inhale of 8 and an exhale of 4, and your exhale would be kind of a forceful exhale. So you're just really like getting out all the energy and waking your brain up in a different way. So that's going to give you, boost your energy, psych yourself up for whatever you need, um, and be able to then refocus on that important task. And the last thing you can do to refocus in real time is give yourself a mindful moment. So using all 5 of your senses one at a time, you're just going to pick out one thing that you hear, see, feel, taste, and smell around you. Or you can pick 3 out of the 5, whatever is kind of applicable to you in that moment. But it allows you to really be in that present moment. Give yourself a quick break. Give yourself that moment to refocus and then get back to the task at hand so that you can be fully immersed again in that moment. So once you're done with those 3 skills, you did all the tasks that you needed to do as well as you could throughout the day. At the end of the day, you want to reflect and think about what you accomplished, and not just your tasks, or not just a task or the to-do list that you did or the things you still have left to do, but the connections that you made or the interactions that you had and how you showed up in those. You can also reflect on the way you carried yourself throughout the day, that intention that you had, how you attacked those what's important now tasks. And then you can also ask yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, how fulfilling that day was for you. Did you focus on one thing at a time? Did you have to multitask or task switch back and forth multiple times? Allowing yourself to reflect on those things and really being aware of those demands that are being placed on you every single day, and how you show up or how you respond to those tasks and those demands are going to directly affect how fulfilling you feel in your day. And again, it's not just about the tasks that you complete or the things you cross off your to-do list, although those things are really fulfilling and feel productive in the moment to just cross it off. You also want to feel like you did your best with what you had every single day, and being able to focus in real time on the things that matter, tying in your values to those tasks or those behaviors, directly telling yourself how you want to feel or what you want to do in those tasks, and then being able to take a moment and reflect or refocus on the task at hand is all going to help you feel the most fulfilled and be at your 100% or wherever you are in the moment in every single task. So I hope that you feel like you can now not just multitask or feel that stress that we had talked about in the beginning of the class, but you have the tools that you can practice to get better at focusing on one thing at a time. And the goal isn't to just focus solely on one task at a time, every single task that you have, because we did establish that there are things that just are out of our control that we're not able to we're not able to focus on solely one task at a time, especially if you have little kids or there are so many things going on at once at work. But it's really about if you have the moment to focus on one thing 100%, try to do that. Try these skills out, see what works, see what doesn't, because these are skills that need to be practiced and that you can get better at. Just because you're not good at them now doesn't mean that you can't get better at them later. So if you have any questions or you have thoughts about what may work for you or definitely won't work for you, please drop them in the chat. Turn yourself off mute, put your microphone on, answer them or ask questions live. I'd love to answer anything that, any questions that you have or any thoughts. And we do have 2 more classes in this series. One is on catastrophic thinking. So being able to pull yourself out of that catastrophic downward spiral, especially if things just aren't going right for you in a day or in a moment. And then character strengths, talking about your strengths and how you can bring those strengths and more on values to the table in any kind of situation. So thank you all for coming and listening. Again, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. I don't think I missed any if there were some. Yeah, thank you all. Happy Valentine's Day. I'll stop sharing my screen too.
That was good. I'll add, when you mentioned the mindful moments, y'all can go and get some guided ones off of the MoveSpring app in the Explore tab. It'll have some that you can just pick from. They're just 2 to 3 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. That's a great resource. All right, looks like there are no questions. If you do have any questions, you can email me as well if you want to talk more in depth about something. So have a great day, everybody. Happy Friday. Enjoy your weekends.
Bye, everybody.